In this video, we're going to be disassembling a lot of the interior on this E90. We're going to be taking off the center console, the dashboard, and all the accessories right around there so we can get to the heater core. The heater core is leaking on this car and we're going to be replacing that, but first I'm going to show you guys how to get to it. There's going to be timestamps for each component. That way if you need something in specific, you can just click on it and it'll take you to that section of this DIY. So we're going to be removing this entire center console. We're going to start right here in the gear shifter area. You're going to lift up this trim that sits inside the center console. So it's just going to have a couple of clips, but you just got to lift it up. Now if your leather or fake leather is very brittle, you can use a trim tool around the edges to push it up. You can see there's a tab right here. There's also a tab right here. And there's various tabs all around the perimeter of this base. There's also a connector, which we're going to slide out. So you just want to pull the two connectors apart and hold the connectors. Try not to pull by the wires. There's another connector up here in the front for automatics, which also pulls out. If you have automatic, you want to push the button in and lift straight up. Here's the connector that's in the top left, and here's the first connector that we removed. Now we actually remove this whole trim. So what you want to do is you want to start in the back, and you're going to lift up. There's just clips all around the perimeter, so we're going to lift straight up. And keep working your way up. And then you're going to slide towards the back. You might need to put the car in neutral. If you need to do that, what you can do is push this section right here. There's a red clip. And that's going to lift this section up. Put your e-brake up, and you can move the whole gear shifter. Once you lift the trim up, you're going to see one connector going down towards the middle of the car. It's got two tabs, one on each side. You're going to push the tabs together and pull off. Now this just looks like a Molex connector that you would have found on older PCs. And there's the whole center console. You can see the clips all around here. So while we're up here, we're going to go ahead and remove this e-brake cover, and then we can keep going back and remove the armrest. So the e-brake cover, you can just start from the bottom right here, push the e-brake up, lift up the boot from this section, and then you're going to slide it and lift up. Slide it towards the front, and you'll see the two tabs right here that slide into the center console. And then you have tabs around, and here's the tab from the front that we pried up from. So you're also going to have these two plastic covers. We're missing one, and the plastic cover is going to be covering a fastener that's inside. So you want to pry off the cover using a trim tool or something. Even a flathead would work. Just pops off. And you should have one on this side as well. We don't. And then you're going to have two 10mm screws inside. We also want to slide this connector off of the center console. So you're going to push this middle tab toward the driver's side, towards the left, and you can slide it down. And this is so when we lift up the whole center console, we're not trying to fight that connector afterwards. So now we are at the back. We're going to remove this section right here that has the vents and the ashtray. You're going to start from the top. Now there's tabs all around the side. There's one at the bottom that's very hard, so you're going to have to stuff like a trim tool from this side and pry that tab back, and it should slide out. And do the same thing on the other side as well. You're going to have a connector for this vent. Here's the top of the connector, and then you're going to have to pull it out from the bottom. The top of the connector, you pull this out from the bottom. Try to grab the connector by the edges and pull. So we're going to disconnect a couple more connectors to make this process a little bit easier. There's one white yellowish connector right here. Also, it looks like a Molex connector. You want to lift it straight up, and it's going to slide out of its holder. So here are the tabs. It's got the same style tab where you could push it a little bit. Usually you're able to like just wiggle it and lift up, but but if you need to, just push this middle section over. Then you have one tab on each side. Push the two tabs together and pull out. We also have this connector in the middle. We're going to disconnect that as well. Hold one side, hold the other one, and they just separate. Now we have these two 10mm nuts. Now you're also going to have this one black connector underneath the e-brake handle. Same thing, you want to slide it out of the holder, and I'll show you guys where it goes once we pull up the console. So now the goal is you want to get the e-brake handle out of the way, and you should be able to lift the center console up and slide it towards the back. Once the boot is down, then you can just lift it up. And this is where that black connector goes on this tab. So since we're going to be removing the whole carpet, I'm going to take the seats out as well. The seats are just held in with 4 T50 screws. So we're going to remove the 2 T20 screws from the lower panel so we can pull the lower panel off, and we can get this piece of trim out. Bring the front section down and slide it towards the back. And we're going to disconnect the Footwell light. That doesn't look good. So we're going to remove this lower panel. There's a tab, there's a push tab right here. You're going to push the push tab towards the middle of the car. And that's going to release it, and then we'll be able to keep pulling it off. Once you have the top push pin off, there's one more on the bottom corner. On the driver's side lower cover, we're going to remove the 3 T20 screws across the base. Now you're going to pull it down, and we're going to slide it towards the back of the car. For this, you push the tab in and you pull it out. And then you have the Footwell light. You pull that one out as well. Now we're going to remove this side panel. First, you have to remove the hood lever. There's just one Phillips screw inside. And then you just slide the lever out. Now you're going to have one more Phillips screw that the lever was hiding. This side panel is also tucked into the carpet, so lift it up off of the carpet first, and you're going to have the same thing with the push pins. Now you are going to have this trunk button, so you want to pull off the connector for that. Just pulls right off, and you have the push pin right here. This will slide out, and this one you have to pull out. So we're going to be removing the glove box next. So in order to remove the glove box, we're going to remove the cup holders first. The cup holders have a trim that goes around it, and then that'll reveal the screws that are inside. So you're going to get a plastic trim tool, and we're going to pull off this trim. You can see that it's cracked right here. So these are very brittle and they are going to crack. So you have to be very careful when you're doing it. So just held on with these 4 clips, 2 pins in the middle, and we have 1 on each corner like this. This one's missing. Now we have these 4 Phillips screws holding in the cup holders. As you can see, these are all cracked and messed up. You can buy replacement cup holders on Amazon. I'll have it linked down below. These usually break anyways. All right, let's pick up the pieces as they fall out. We've got 4 T20 screws across the top. One inside on this side, one inside on this side, and the rest we already removed when we took off the lower cover. Now we can continue taking off the glove box. We're gonna have 3 connectors, one for the glove box light, one for the trunk switch, and one for the flashlight. You can also pull off the wiring from these clips that are built into the glove box. And here is the one for the flashlight, just 2 tabs, one on each side, and then you wiggle it out. Now we're gonna try to pull off this whole center section, the center trim. These tabs are gonna be very brittle, but you want to start prying on the corner right here. There's gonna be metal pins that go across the whole center section. You just want to use your plastic trim tool to help you. Now you are going to have a couple of connectors, one for the start button and one for the middle climate control. For the start button, you want to push the tabs in on each side and then pull the connector out. And for the HVAC, you want to pull out the small one first, which is in the front. Try to hold the connector and pull it straight out, and then you have this one in the further in as well. And same thing, hold the connector and pull it out. They go right inside of here. It's really hard to get in there. You might even have to use some needle nose pliers or even that plastic trim tool, but they just pull straight out. Next up, we need to remove this whole center section, the radio and the climate control module. So we're going to pull off the climate control module first so we can reveal the screws. The climate control module is just held in with a couple of clips around the perimeter. Easiest way is start from the bottom and then get your trim tool in there and work your way up. Here's one of the tabs. Same thing on the other side. And on the bottom. To disconnect this, you want to push this tab in and then move this lever. On the black one, you do the same thing, but it goes the opposite way. To remove the radio, you're going to have 2 Phillips screws, one on each side. Now you just want to slide it out. Then you have a connector right here. You want to lift up the tab. You want to lift up and push towards the back. That'll slide out. Then we have this antenna cable. Push the tab in on the side. And there you have it. Radio removed. So I went ahead and removed the steering wheel. I'll have that video linked down below. Now we need to remove this key fob holder and then the gauge cluster. So you just want to use your trim tool and get it behind the plastic, and it'll just work your way off the tabs. One right here, and one right here. We have 2 Phillips screws. So when you're pulling this off, there's 2 tabs that go behind the dashboard on this side. So that's why you're going to remove the screws first, and then you can push the tabs in. You can even use a flathead screwdriver and pry on this section against the dashboard, and it'll slide out. And now we have the same kind of ribbon cable that was on the top for the start stop button. Push the 2 tabs in, one on each side. So you'll push the 2 tabs in and lift up towards the roof. And it comes out of there. To make it easier when we're removing the dashboard, we're also going to move this holder for the radio and the climate control unit. It's held in with 4 T20 screws. You're also going to need to remove these 2 8mm screws on the inside. Now you can pull out the whole holder. So we need to remove this steering column cover as well. It's just held in with a bunch of tabs across. There's two halves, one on the top and one on the bottom. So we're just gonna try to pry them apart. So you're gonna be able to remove the top section very easily once you start unclipping it from the bottom. So lift the top up, that's gonna stay with the dash. Now this lower steering column cover, you have this tab that goes over the top of this. You'll pry the tab away and pull down at the same time. You can have the same thing on the other side. One right here and one right here. You want to pull them away and pull this down. Now we're going to remove this whole center section. It's going to be held in with 4 T25 screws, one on each corner. So to disconnect it, we have one of the connectors like the HVAC module where you have to push the tab in. They're like this locked. You want to push this tab in and slide that over. And then you just have one with the normal tab. You push this tab in, pull the connector out, and here's the one that I was talking about. And just slide it off. Those connectors go right here. To make it easier for us when we're removing the dash, we're also going to remove this plastic cover from this fabric. You just want to use needle nose pliers, push these two tabs in. And you do want to put some pressure on the other side of the fabric. There is a plastic tab that runs through it while you're pushing these two tabs together. And I like to do this that way there's just less plastic clanging around and trying to break. So now we can start removing the gauge cluster. First, you're going to have these two T10 screws on the top of this trim. And you can just use the trim to pull the gauge cluster back. And now on the back side, you're going to have another one of these connectors like the HVAC module. You want to push the tab in, slide the lever across, and then release it from the clip that's on the back of the cluster. Now we're going to remove this vent and trim. Same as the other side, there's going to be pins. So you want to get your plastic pry tool behind it, and you want to pry against the dashboard. Here's one pin on this corner and one right here. Now we can remove the light control module. You want to pry off around the edges. You have two pins on this side and one pin on that side. And once again, we have that same connector like the HVAC. Push the tab in and move the lever down. Now we need to remove the front pillars, one on each corner. So we're going to start by removing the weather strip. Weather strip just pulls off. And this is also going to help remove the dash later as well. And we're going to keep removing it up until we get to the top of the headliner. Now we are going to remove this plastic cover that says airbag. You're going to use a plastic pry tool to try to get it off. Chances are it's going to be on there really tight, and you might have to go at it with like a flathead screwdriver or something a little bit more stiffer. But you want to make sure your tool's pretty clean, that way you don't stain it up. And it is held in with pressure with a clip right here and a clip right here. And now you're going to have a 1 T20 screw inside of here. And here's the clip that plastic cover was attached to. Now you just pull the top of the pillar. You can have one push pin right here. You can have these two tabs that slide into the dashboard. So if you're really having a hard time pulling this off, especially if your car's been in the sun, it's it's probably gonna crack. So what you could try to do is like how I did and lift it up. Just try to slide it off of the pin. So our pin came out, it just fell on the ground, but that's the way you want to go. Like you can see this one's already cracking right here as well. And these do get very brittle and crack all the time. Now we're gonna have a few T20 screws across the dashboard holding it in place. Start off with this one right here. These two right here. This one right here. One right here. We need to remove this defroster vent from right here as well. So you want to get your plastic pry tool and go around the perimeter for all the tabs. Now you're gonna have 4 T20 screws up here. And now we can start trying to pull it off. You want to remove this connector, pull it straight down. Just pull it straight down. Now you need to remove this 10mm screw as well. Now we need to push this wire up through the top. You just push it with your fingernail from the bottom. It's like a push rivet that goes inside the dash. We're just going to slide the wire through the side and let it dangle. So we need to remove this airbag connector for the passenger airbag. You want to get in there, pull the middle tab out, just like that steering wheel, and then you can pull the whole connector out. And it's the same thing on the other side. Snap it back in place. Okay. So I showed you guys how to remove most of the interior. Hopefully this was helpful. We're still gonna do the heater core, but that's gonna be in a separate video. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm ready to get out of this smelly car. We're gonna have another like short maybe on here of how to remove smells and odors out of your car. So as you can see, we removed the whole carpet and stuff because it was just moldy and there's still a bunch of mold everywhere. We're gonna address all of that and I'll see you guys in our next video. Thanks for watching.